Alright, what's up folks? Straight to the point, no nonsense, warrior 1 to 80, every skill, how you're most likely going to use it. I'm going off the class page for the Final Fantasy XIV website and I'm going to go over each skill. If it's brief, it's brief. If it needs an explanation, I'll explain it. And I'll just basically show you all the animations and any major notes that you need to do. So this is a beginner. You start in the game, you're playing tank. This is what you can expect as you're going through. So first off, I don't need to dwell too much on Heavy Swing. You are going to know what it is. It's a combo starter. It remains a combo starter in the end game as well. At level 4, you get your Maim, which is the second part of that combo. That remains the same at end game as well. That will guide you into 2 different end combos. But to start off with, it looks like from level 1 and 4, all the way up to level 26, you're just going to be doing Heavy Swing and Maim for your single target. You don't get your first combo ender until level 26, which is Storm's Path. Berserk is a damage steroid. You want to put that, to start off with, you want to put the Berserk in between the Heavy Swing and the Maim. Get used to putting a buff between the Heavy Swing and the Maim. My Berserk is going to look a little bit different to yours because it upgrades later on, which we'll cover. But get used to putting buffs between GCDs when that little timer there, you see the little timer that moves around? Get it in between there to start off with. Overpower is, Overpower is amazing. It's your main go-to AoE. It's so nice. It's a cone AoE, so if I aim it like this, I'll hit the 2 bosses, but if I'm too far out, let me try here. If I'm too far out, I'm not going to hit. So when you're doing your AoE packs, get used to like gathering the mobs, getting close to them, and imagining a cone, you know, like a triangle that is coming out, and that's going to get you your AoE. You'll be using this for a long time. You do change it up a little bit later on, and you do get a follow-up to it, which is good. Defiance is a tank stance. Early on, you can turn it on and forget about it. Later on in the end game, you might want to be turning it off and on. But for now, as you're leveling up, get it on there. When you're in an 8-man party and you've got a second tank, you can then decide who's going to main tank and off tank, and you just turn it off. It's got an enmity modifier on it, so you're going to keep aggro. Aggro is not an issue in Final Fantasy XIV. You can keep it with any GCD as long as Defiance is on. What we get next? So you have to do a class quest to unlock Tomahawk, and Tomahawk is basically it has extra enmity on it, so it's going to add even more enmity if you're in this stance. It's your combo starter, so you throw and then you run in, and you've got initial aggro, and you go into your Heavy Swing, and your Maim, and your Berserk. It's really good if you have to dodge mechanics, and you want to style on people, and stuff like that. Next, you've got a bit of a gap. So you got a bit of a gap between 15 and 26, but once you get 26, you can now finish off your first combo. So you'll get Storm's Path. It increases your beast gauge eventually. You need a trait to do it. But for you, it's going to complete your first combo. So you're not going to be doing a 2 GCD combo. You're now going to have the ability to do your very first combo, which is going to feel pretty nice and complete. Thrill of Battle basically increases your max HP, and it helps with healing actions on you. So it can be paired up with a weaker GCD, or you can use it on your own. So I'm going to use it here. My HP goes up by 20%. So you can use it to, if you know a damage buster is going to do 80% of your health, you can use this. You can use it if you need healing. Really good on AoE packs as well. Let's have a look at the next one. Inner Beast. My Inner Beast is going to look a bit different. Inner Beast is kind of like your damage nuke. You definitely want to get as many Inner Beasts as you can under Berserk. So Inner Beast eventually will turn into this, a Fel Cleave. So you want to get used to using it under Berserk. Vengeance is absolutely awesome. It's a cooldown, a big chunky cooldown that does 30%, but it also reflects damage. So what you want to get used to doing is popping your Vengeance and popping your Berserk, because your Berserk, which turns into your inner release eventually, will give you guaranteed crits, and it works on Vengeance. So you can pop this Vengeance, and every time you get hit, you're reflecting 55 potency to all those enemies, and those 55 potencies are going to be guaranteed crits if you do it under Berserk. One of the strongest cooldowns in the game, Vengeances, so get used to using it. Mythril Tempest will complete your AoE combo, so in dungeons you'll be going like this and whirlwinding your axe around. And you will pretty much just spam that until you have your additional AoE skills, such as Steel Cyclone, Decimate. But to start off with, you'll be doing that 2 GCD combo. And that comes in at level 40. And it is based off of your Overpower. Holmgang is essentially a chain that stops you from dying if you're on 1 health. But you can also use it to stun. So you can do it and run behind the enemy. And the enemy will stay facing forward. So it's really good on big mobs as well. If you're in trouble and you're panicking, hit that Holmgang and you'll be saved for a little bit. I have an upgraded version of Steel Cyclone, which is Decimate, but Steel Cyclone will essentially be one of your AoEs as well. Think of it as the AoE version of Inner Beast, but once they upgrade the AoE version of Fel Cleave. So my animation is going to look a little bit like this. Yours will be a bit of a whirlwind and less potency, and it will upgrade via a passive over time. So that's what Steel Cyclone does as well. Very good for dungeon AoE pulling. Next, you get at level 50, you get your Storm's Eye. Storm's Eye is your main bread and butter. So unlike Storm's Path, Storm's Eye, once you apply it, will give you damage dealt increase. And that damage is 10%. So now, as soon as you get Storm's Eye, you need to change it up a bit. When you're picking up mobs in dungeons, you want to try and make it so that you build up your Storm's Eye first. So mess about on a single mob. And then pull all the mobs, pull in. And now do your 2 GCD AoE combo. And all those GCDs are going to be under that 10% damage. And eventually, if you'll notice, every time, once you've got your Storm's Eye up, you're eventually just going to be able to recap your Storm's Eye with Mythril Tempest. So it is technically possible to only apply Storm's Eye once and keep the uptime by running, sprinting through the dungeon, and using those 2 GCD top-ups. It's a thing I don't see done too much. A lot of warriors, they do run in and they do the AoE combo without doing Eye, and you're kind of nerfing yourself on 10% damage in that regard. So really good warriors will build up. They'll go like boom. Oh, there's a mob. Boom. Oh, there's another mob. Boom. Wait for them to gather, and then boom. They'll start doing their AoE combo, which is now enhanced by 10%, which is pretty ace. What's the next skill? Infuriate. So Infuriate will... let me just spend my gauge. So my gauge is... Actually, you probably can't see my gauge, can you? So my gauge is... Let's put it up here. When you use Infuriate, you'll instantly get 50 gauge. This gauge will lead you into abilities such as Onslaught, Upheaval, and give you access to your AoE abilities. You'll start to unlock these as you go on down the game, and you'll start to be using gauge abilities as well as just your normal combos that you would have been doing earlier on. So again, grants you gauge, and it grants you the ability to use what we call a Nascent Chaos, which we'll get into in a moment. Level 54. This is where the big boy combo comes in. Once you've got 50 gauge, you can pop a Fel Cleave. Fel Cleave upgrades from Inner Beast, and it's the manliest looking ability you've got. So let me build up 50 gauge just to show you, without doing Storm's Eye, because Storm's Path is going to give you more gauge, but you usually put Eye on first. Right, so now I've got 50 gauge. Now look at this. This is how Fel Cleave looks. Manly as hell. That's a skill you're going to want to dump into those Berserks, and you're going to want to make sure you've got that Storm's Eye up. You can also do an AoE version, which is a bit later on at level 60. Raw Intuition is a little bit of a pepper damage cooldown. So it's 6 seconds. It gives you 20%. It's good. It's really good when you pair it up. So if you pair up Thrill of Battle with Raw Intuition, that's good. Eventually, you'll get another ability called Nascent Flash. And that will kind of, you'll still be able to use Raw Intuition, but it will share the same cooldown timer as Nascent Flash. And most warriors end up using Nascent Flash over Raw Intuition later on, and we'll get into what Nascent Flash does in a moment. Equilibrium, it's a self-heal. Pretty much simple. Do it after a big damage attack. It's pretty awesome. Decimate. Decimate is the Fel Cleave version, the AoE version of a Fel Cleave. So it does 250 potency, whereas Fel Cleave does 590. So after you get like, if you got more than like 2-3 enemies, it's going to be way better. Let me show you how it looks actually. So again, I'm just going to build up the gauge. So I'll do 2 storms. Well, actually, I'll do this and 1 storm's path. Now, once you've gathered your mobs and you've got some initial aggro with Overpower and Mythril Tempest, then you can drop a Berserk and then boom, drop in a Decimate. And you can drop in a lot of these eventually at endgame, and it's pretty awesome. Onslaught, it's a gap closer. It's the longest range gap closer out of all the tanks. So you only get 1 use, whereas with Paladin, you get 2 uses. However, Onslaught costs gauge and it's the longest range, so you can be really flexible and agile with Onslaught. Dart to mobs, pick up aggro, wait for the cooldown, dart to other mobs, and all of that sort of stuff. Upheaval is an off-global, and again, another manly-looking ability. It costs 20 beast gauge, and you pepper this in as an off-global, so this is how it looks. Basically, uppercut the mob 3 times. It's one of the best looking animations I've seen personally. So you'll eventually be weaving this in, having it under Berserk and in a release. Shake it off is okay. It's basically a barrier that goes around you and your party. You can also enhance it by sacrificing certain cooldowns once they're up. Most of the time you use it for big AoE damage when they're grouped from bosses. In a release, level 70, this is where Warrior starts to come into its own. In a release is a Kaioken. It's like the Kaioken of Final Fantasy XIV. You use it, and you can get 5 Fel Cleaves, 5 GCDs into the window. Now, when you use in a release, you can't be slept, stunned, heavied, so you can actually time it with mechanics that knock you back, and it guarantees that you double crit, so crit and direct hit crit, all of your abilities. And it's one of the selling points of Warrior. So I'm going to do an inner release. For good practice, I'm going to get Storm's Eye up first because, you know, you want to get that 10% extra damage. There's my Storm's Eye. Now watch, I'm going to get 5 GCDs, and these can be Fel Cleaves or they can be the AoE Fel Cleaves Decimates. We'll do the single target first. Look at all those crits. You can see we're critting our auto attacks as well in between, because we still auto attack as we're Fel Cleaving. So you get guaranteed crits every 1 minute 30, every 90 seconds. And like I said, you can start to really get advanced here, and you can do Vengeance under inner release. Remember, Berserk upgrades into inner release, so you can do Vengeance, and every reflection of 55 potency to an enemy will crit as well. And you can also do that with the AoEs as well. So once you've built up a bunch of AoE with Overpower and the follow-up with Overpower, you can hit in a release and do 5 Decimates, and oh man, oh, the damage is absolutely mad. It's absolutely mad. Level 72, you get Chaotic Cyclone. So you can get access to, I guess you could call it an upgraded Fel Cleave and an upgraded Decimate by using Infuriate. Once you use Infuriate, you get 30 seconds to use one of the special abilities, and it automatically upgrades the ability. So you don't have to have an additional hotkey slot. If you can see my hotbar, these 2 areas that are lighting up, this is where Decimate and Fel Cleave was. And as long as you use it in 30 seconds, you'll be good to go. So this is what it looks like when you power up the Fel Cleave. It's basically got the Inner Beast animation. And this is what it looks like when you power up the Decimate. Do a bit of a whirlwind. And also, if you noticed, it's guaranteed crit as well. So Warrior is getting a lot of guaranteed crits with some of these abilities, and it's often why you want to put a lot of crit into your Warrior as well. Nascent Flash. This ability is the one that basically, if I use Raw Intuition now, you'll see that down here my Nascent Flash has gone on cooldown. You can only use one or the other. So most warriors use Nascent Flash. Can you guess why? It's got something to do with this inner release. I'll show you. Once this comes off cooldown, let me get a Storm's Eye up. I'm going to pop in a release. I'm going to do 5 Fel Cleaves. And I'm going to put Nascent Flash on. Here we go. 16k health. 16k health. Auto attack. 16k health. And now it's ran off. So basically, Nascent Flash will also give you a shitload of health back. And you start to see that the playstyle of Warrior is you want to regen your health with Nascent Flash. And Nascent Flash is insanely strong. I soloed an expert dungeon, which is meant for 4 people. I soloed the whole dungeon and the final boss by using Nascent Flash. And that's also on my channel. It's called Solo Spectral Berserker. It's thanks to this Nascent Flash skill. You can also use it with Vengeance. Not going to go too deep into that, but you can start to... Once you get late game with Warrior, you can start to mix and match mitigation and health regen. It's absolutely awesome. Inner Chaos, I showed you that one. So Inner Chaos was when you activate Infuriate and you get the 30-second window. Inner Chaos is basically, it's like a super Fel Cleave. Next, roll skill actions. These are standard. Low blow is a stun. You will use this a lot in dungeons. It doesn't work too much on bosses, hardly ever. But in dungeons, it's quite big. Rampart, 20% mitigation. Put it up when you're fighting bosses and mobs. AoE mobs will hit harder than bosses in most dungeons. So that's when you want to have the most mitigation. Provoke puts you +1 of the boss. So it's really good. It's actually really good to pull mobs from a distance. It's even further than Tomahawk. And use it for tank swaps as well. Interject is a silence. You will be able to, you know, if you can silence a mob when you see the cast bar and it has a red outline. Get used to looking at mob cast bars. If it has a red outline, it means it can be silenced. So get used to that. Reprisal, absolutely core. It basically puts a flat 10% damage down in an AoE radius. So you use it on big boss attacks, you use it on mobs that are around you. It's like a little circle and it affects everything. So I got it on that mob as well. Really good. Arm's length stops you from getting knocked back, but also it creates a barrier around you. So as long as arm's length is active, any mobs that hit you will have a debuff on them that slows their attacks by 20%. So it's uncommon. It's an uncommon thing. Before, a lot of warriors fought, well, a lot of tanks thought that arm's length only prevented knockbacks, but it also creates a barrier that when a mob hits you, they get 20% slow. So it's really good for AoE packs. Shirk is a tank swap ability. I'm not going to be able to shirk because I don't have a co-tank. But when you do a tank swap, let's say you're here and the main tank's in front of the boss, he just gets a big tank buster and like, okay, boom, provoke. And then he will cast shirk on you. Likewise, if you're here as the main tank, you just mitigated a big hit. The tank over here has provoked. You would then use shirk. Shirk basically will divert a big chunk of your aggro, 25% of your aggro to a target. So it basically guarantees you never have aggro issues. Traits are stuff that are passives that you build up over time. So you're not going to have your first trait until level 35. And the traits are basically level 1, you don't need to worry about that. Level 35, the beast gauge when landing a Maim or a Storm's Path will increase your bar here. So it won't be increased for a little while, but after level 35 it will. After level 54, your inner beast turns into that Fel Cleave, that absolutely monstrous attack. Your steel cyclone turns into a decimate. Your infuriate at level 66 will be enhanced, so it will basically take the timer down 5 seconds every time you use a Fel Cleave or a decimate or a steel cyclone. So you can get quite a lot of them in a fight. You got to wait till level 70, unfortunately, to get this absolutely mad ability. So up until level 70, you're going to be using Berserk. But as soon as you hit 70, the quality of play and life goes up so much on Warrior. Level 72. So at level 72, when you cast Infuriate, you're going to get a super powered up Fel Cleave or Decimate. Before then, I believe just doing an Infuriate will increase your gauge. So at level 72, that really enhances your gameplay as well. At level 74, doing a Mythril Tempest, the follow-up of Overpower, will increase your gauge. Up until then, it won't. And the last one is level 78, Enhanced Thrill of Battle. So without it, you're just going to increase your health. But once you hit level 78, when you do that Thrill of Battle, any heals that you get are going to be enhanced by 20%. And that's every skill and every animation. Warrior, basically, it's got a nice, fun, simple rotation, and you are extremely hard hitting and you focus on health regeneration. I'll link this webpage in the video. It's really simple. It shows you your combos, so heavy swing Maim, 2 combo enders, your Overpower, your beast gauge early on and your beast gauge later on. And just for you know, shits and giggles, this is what a warrior opener will look like. A little bit of a bonus to the end of the video. So this is what it looked like when you pull a boss at the end game. Yeah, I hope this helped. I hope you have a good expectation of what's going to be waiting for you when you level up. I've played Warrior for a long time and it's incredibly fun, and I can't wait to see what they do with it in Endwalker. It's not all perfect, it does have its issues, but in the grand scheme of things, it's very fun. So those are the abilities in a nutshell and what you can wait to expect. Have a gander, let me know how it goes, and let me know if you're a new player and you're playing Marauder or Warrior. How's it going? Are you having fun? But yeah, other than that, folks, I'm out. I'm going to jet, and good luck leveling up. So for now, I am out.